Here we go. It's September 2014, and coffee in hand, I take a seat at my dining room table, about to begin my usual weekend perusal of the Saturday morning paper. But as I unfold the front page, I see a familiar face. Nelson, an 8th grade student at my school. And there, in black and white print, his story, an epic story, unfolded. I read about how his mother, a widow, came to the United States when he was 7 years old to earn money for their upbringing by painting houses here in Charlotte. And I read about how his life in Honduras was nightmarish. He was forced to work in coffee fields beginning at age 4, with never enough food to go around, living under the constant threat of regular beatings at the hands of relatives with whom he and his younger sister lived. Meanwhile, Honduras was swiftly sailing up the ranks to becoming the most violent country in the world. Like stage 4 cancer, the drug gangs metastasized throughout the tiny nation, laying wreckage and death in their wake, their actions naming San Pedro Sula the most deadly city on the planet. So after years of living with bruised bodies and bare stomachs, 13-year-old Nelson knew it was time to find his mother. So he skimmed and scraped and snuck from the money she sent bit by bit, weeks, months, and then finally enough to buy 2 bus tickets. And so we enter stage 1 of the hero's journey, departure. And in the darkness of an early morning, he and his 6-year-old sister quietly put on 2 layers of clothes and they left their home. The hero's journey had begun. With just enough money to make it to the next town over, the 2 young children panhandled their way through 4 countries over the course of 4 weeks, hopping from town to town to town, relying on the kindness of strangers. Stage 2, initiation. The bus became their bed, spare change became their food fund, and Nelson's hugs and promises that it would get better served as a salve for young Erica's tears and fears. And then, finally, the river, the Rio Bravo, the Furious River, the Metsichichena, the Big River, the Rio Grande del Norte, the Great River of the North, this last supreme ordeal, and then onward to the journey's denouement. Epic heroes always face a water-based trial. Odysseus barely scraped past the sea monster Scylla. Gilgamesh took a wild raft ride down the river Euphrates. Beowulf dove down to the dark, deep lake cave to kill Grendel's mother. Moses and the Israelites stood stuck on the beach of the Red Sea, endless waters up ahead, and an angry army trailing close behind. I want you to imagine this. You're 6 years old, you haven't eaten a decent meal for several weeks now. You haven't eaten a decent meal for potentially several months, if not years. The streets have been your home. You're standing on the edge of rushing waters, knowing that you somehow must cross, that the mother who you last saw when you were too young to form memories is on the other side, already living the promise of a better life, one free from coffee fields and abusive guardians and starvation and staggering murder statistics, and yet you don't know how to swim. So your 13-year-old brother kisses your freckled nose, takes you on his back and tells you he's got you and you'll be fine and it will all work out. And you'll get to see your mother very soon. And even though his scrawny body looks more like that of a 9-year-old due to a childhood plagued by malnutrition, you trust him because he's brought you this far already. And this is where you wish this were the stuff of fairy tales, where you realize it is better suited for a Disney movie where a magic wand-waving fairy godmother instantly makes everything new again, or even that of an ancient Greek legend where the gods can drop down a thunderbolt of lightning to intervene. It shouldn't be like this, not here and now, not 2 young children. But as it were, even so, even without a miraculous parting of the river's waters, they made it. But only to be scooped up by Border Patrol on the other side, knowing no English. All Nelson had to offer was a scrap of paper with a cell phone number scratched on it. They were ushered to a shelter and their mother was contacted. 2 months went by before she was able to raise money for their airfare to Charlotte, but at last, stage 3 of the journey, return and reuniting. After 7 years, they finally felt the warm embrace of their mother once more. And where the story leaves off, with the very real possibility that they could be deported back to the same relatives who abused them. It seems Mr. Joseph might need to add another stage to the journey trope for those heroes who aren't recognized as heroes. And all this on a Saturday morning before my first bite of breakfast. And so most immediately, several questions. How is it that we first learned about Nelson's story from a newspaper reporter? He had been at our school since the previous spring. Shame on us. And then what other Nelsons are sitting in our schoolhouse seats? And why do we keep referring to him as an unaccompanied minor? Wouldn't courageous hero be a more fitting description? And now here today in 2017, my list of questions lengthens. And there's still so much that I long to be true. I long for the day when Nelson is welcomed with open arms, and when we see the intense privilege it is to have someone with that sort of grit and gumption gracing the halls of our schools. One where I don't hear other teachers mutter under their breath, "What am I supposed to do with him? He doesn't know English." And I long for the day when the number of Hispanic teachers in CMS matches the number of Hispanic students in CMS, as opposed to the current 3% to 22%. For the day when we spend billions building schools and libraries instead of walls and immigration detention facilities. For the day when we establish federal holidays honoring the Nelsons of the world and not the Christopher Columbuses of the world. And I long for the day when Christian is synonymous with the gospel of Jesus Christ and not the gospel of American exceptionalism. When the phrase bab hombre is used only in the context of a hair dyeing session gone wrong. When the term illegal is always an adjective and never a noun. And when ice is something you simply put in your drink to cool it down. And I long for the day when the public expresses outrage at the news that 28-year-old Javier Diaz, father of 4, is gunned down by an undercover police officer after a minor fender bender on Alumni Road. And they still, by the way, have not released the name of that officer who shot and killed him. Mr. Diaz was killed in January. And I long for the day when Gus Zamudio will walk across the stage and receive his diploma from CMS come June, instead of being forced to walk back across the border into a country he no longer calls home. There's an old Honduran proverb that says, "For great ills, great remedies." But if we keep deporting all the great heroes in our midst, the truly courageous among us, then we won't ever have anyone to save us from ourselves.